Welcome to the instructional video series on the adjustable hip square. This is segment 4 of a 6-part series where we're going to show you how to lay out and cut a valley rafter. Later in this segment, we're going to cut to the field and demonstrate it firsthand with the adjustable square. We're going to begin by calculating valley rafter B. We addressed this in the segment 2, calculating your plan, which you can view it in its entirety either on YouTube or on our website. But we've discovered that the building on this end is 10 3/4 inches. The measurement for this valley member is 5 feet 1 3/4 inches on the adjustable hip scale. So we're going to show you how to lay that out and cut that rafter by starting at the very end or the tail of this member. Now, we always measure from the center line. In our case, with a valley member, the center line is actually set in 3/4 of an inch so that once the rafter's in place, you can receive these two sides, opposing faces, plane with the tails of the common rafters. So in our case, from that original mark, 3/4 of an inch is our starting measuring point. We're going to make a small mark there. Now, we established an overhang of 9 3/4 inches, which is basically a 12-inch overhang with the subtracting the fascia and subfascia, which of course the subfascia is 1.5 inches. The finished fascia is 3/4 of an inch, leaves us 9 3/4 of an inch. We'll mark it like so. Again, this is the center point, and of course, because this is a valley member, the center point is here, and in order for it to project into the interior corner, it would be like so. And again, that dimension would be 3/4 by 3/4 by 7/8 of an inch. So we're going to mark 3/4 there. Okay. Now, again, this is our center line, so we're going to move from that point, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and of course 1 3/4 of an inch. So that's the end of our rafter. If we go back to the drawing, I identify all valley members as being either left or right. And you may use terminology differently, but of course every valley, because it does not penetrate the center line all the way to the merging point of these three members, and is actually cut with a larger face on one side, I tend to deem the side of the rafter with the longer cut face, in this case it would be the right side. This would be a right hand valley rafter looking at the plan. This would be a left hand valley rafter looking at the plan, because the longer cut face would be here. So we're making a right-handed cut, and I'm going to show you exactly how that works. Once we've established our center line, we have to consider the thickness of going to be shy half the distance of the ridge. Now in our case, again, we're using 1.5 inch dimensional lumber, so that would be 3/4 of an inch shy of our original measurement on the hip scale. But you have to allow for the thickness of your ridge member. If your ridge member was longer, then obviously you would, whatever that dimension is, half of that thickness would be the dimension you would adjust here. So that is now our new center point. And then in order to make that longer face, we need 3/4 of an inch for our saw cut. Now, the valley member, unlike a hip member, gets cut all the way across, with one small exception, and we're going to show you exactly how that works. Once again, through the magic of television, you can see the result of this cut once it's been made all the way across the face. even though you can leave that cut extending all the way to a point, it will work much better with your placement against the ridge member if you come in 1/4 of an inch and then cut the other face with this very small little segment that's cut back on a 45-degree bevel as well. This will actually give you a plane line to address to the ridge member once the rafter is set in place. When we start thinking about heel height with a valley member, there are more things to consider other than just the overall heel height of the entire building, that being hip rafters and common rafters. If we look closely, we've got both dimensions here on our valley member. We've got the center point, which is the interior corner, and we've got the outer point where which is the cut line of the two faces. Now, many people differ on their and the way that they meet the common or jack rafters. Some individuals like for the edge of the common rafter to be flush with the face of the valley member. Many individuals, including myself, would rather see this face raised so that the top edge planes to the center of that valley member. So if you decide that you want to have them plane flush, then you would choose this line to establish your 2 1/8 inches in this case for your heel height. If you want them to plane to the center, then you would use the center point line right there, and we're going to use that line. So we're going to establish 2 1/8 right there, which is that dimension right there. Then we're going to take our square and finish that line and make these cuts. Okay. Through the magic of television, again, we've already cut a rafter so that you can see exactly how the layout that we demonstrated for you corresponds. You can see the end of the tail of the rafter, which is kind of the inverted or the antithesis of what we did with the hip member, which allows each opposing face to plane with the common rafter tails as they move away on the perpendicular walls. As we move up, of course, from that center point to this center point is 9 3/4, as we've already demonstrated. You'll discover quickly that the same is true from these points, and I'm going to show you a little way to cheat on the overall length of this in just a minute. We've gone ahead and, again, you do not have to make this point. I did this for demonstration purposes and to show you how the center point is your measuring point, but you can make this cut square. I know that when you're framing you need things to move along more quickly. If you want to be real neat and real precise, you can make this cut, but it is not necessary. You just need to know where your measuring point is, which is this point here. At the top, as we move up the rafter, once again, you can see how the end of the rafter is cut. And remember that the layout was actually 3/4 of an inch longer on the hip scale, and we adjusted for the thickness of the ridge member to come back to this point. Now that I've shown you the actual calculations and how you create this valley member, we're going to actually show you a way to cheat. You'll recognize very closely that these 2 points and these 2 points are the same distance, and the back 2 points are also the same distance. So with the rafter laid face up with the cut side at the top end face toward us, we're going to show you very quickly that the face of this also aligns with 9 3/4 inches. And if we were to use this mark as our starting point rather than the center line, we can step off the same 5 feet. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we can get 1 1/8 on the hip scale, and the actual difference in the dimension of this rafter, if you use this face, would be about 1/4 of an inch, or 3/16, between 3/16 and 1/4 of an inch. So if you're framing quickly and precision is not important, you can use the short face and calculate your length just on this face, make that cut without ever trying to make all these more complicated calculations and being more precise. When speed is of the essence, you can use the face of a valley member instead of going through the complicated calculations.